The year 1960 did not simply continue cinema's evolution, it detonated it. Studios were still clinging to polished spectacle and familiar formulas, yet filmmakers across continents began tearing down the old rules. Black and white images felt sharper, moral boundaries grew murkier, and protagonists no longer needed to be heroic to be compelling. Audiences were suddenly asked to confront violence, sexuality, political unrest, and existential doubt in ways that felt immediate and unsettling. American directors challenged censorship, European auteurs redefined narrative structure, and genre films mutated into psychological battlegrounds. The safe distance between viewer and screen began to disappear. These films did not politely request attention, they demanded it. What makes 1960 extraordinary is not nostalgia, but disruption. In a single calendar year, horror, epic, romance, crime, satire, and art house experimentation all shifted direction at once. The ripple effects still shape modern filmmaking, proving that some revolutions arrive quietly before echoing for decades afterward.
Exodus. Exodus approached geopolitical conflict with sweeping ambition, translating the founding of Israel into epic cinema. Directed by Otto Preminger and starring Paul Newman, the film merged romance, war, and political drama within expansive Mediterranean landscapes. Ernest Gold's powerful musical theme reinforced the emotional gravity, becoming one of the era's most recognizable scores. Unlike conventional war spectacles, Exodus foregrounded ideological struggle and displacement, inviting audiences to confront modern history rather than distant legend. Preminger's deliberate pacing allowed complex political conversations to unfold alongside large-scale movement and migration. The film's willingness to dramatize contemporary conflict signaled a shift toward politically engaged mainstream storytelling. Though criticized for simplification, its cultural impact was undeniable, shaping global perceptions of Middle Eastern history for decades. Exodus demonstrated that epic filmmaking could tackle recent events with conviction, influencing later historical dramas to blend personal narratives with sweeping political transformation.
The Magnificent Seven. The Magnificent Seven transplanted Akira Kurosawa's samurai epic into the American West, proving that cinematic storytelling could transcend cultural borders. Directed by John Sturges, the film assembled a rugged ensemble, including Yul Brynner and Steve McQueen, transforming character archetypes into enduring Western mythology. Elmer Bernstein's triumphant score amplified the sense of heroic scale, becoming one of cinema's most recognizable themes. Rather than focusing solely on gunfights, the narrative examines sacrifice, honor, and the fragile alliance between hired guns and vulnerable villagers. The film's pacing balanced action with reflective pauses, allowing audiences to connect with each outlaw's motivations. Its cross-cultural adaptation demonstrated Hollywood's ability to reinterpret international narratives without erasing their thematic core. The Magnificent Seven influenced ensemble westerns and action films for decades, cementing the template of disparate warriors uniting for a moral cause, while redefining genre storytelling through global inspiration and emotional resonance.
La Dolce Vita. Federico Fellini's La Dolce Vita presented modern celebrity culture as spiritual emptiness disguised as glamour. Structured episodically, the film followed journalist Marcello Mastroianni through Rome's nightlife, exposing decadence beneath flashing cameras. The iconic Trevi fountain scene blended sensuality with melancholy, crystallizing the tension between desire and disillusionment. Fellini's expansive compositions and fluid camera movements turned parties into dreamlike spectacles, blurring reality and fantasy. Rather than offering moral judgment, the film observed its characters drifting through excess, unable to anchor themselves in meaning. Its frank treatment of sexuality and existential despair provoked controversy, yet signaled a new boldness in international cinema. La Dolce Vita reshaped narrative structure by favoring thematic exploration over linear plot. The term paparazzi entered global vocabulary through its influence. By confronting fame, faith, and alienation, Fellini created a cinematic mirror reflecting modern society's restless search for purpose.
Peeping Tom. Peeping Tom unsettled audiences by forcing them to identify with a killer's gaze.
Directed by Michael Powell, the film follows a cameraman who murders women while filming their terror, transforming cinema itself into a weapon. Released the same year as Psycho, it proved even more disturbing to critics, who condemned its voyeuristic intensity. Powell's use of subjective camera angles implicated viewers, blurring the boundary between observer and accomplice. The saturated color palette contrasted beauty with brutality, heightening discomfort rather than offering escapism. Karl-Heinz Boehm's restrained performance deepened the psychological portrait, presenting trauma as origin rather than excuse. Though initially reviled and damaging to Powell's career, Peeping Tom was later reassessed as a visionary exploration of spectatorship. Its influence echoes through modern horror and psychological thrillers that interrogate the act of watching itself, proving that cinema could critique its own power while redefining narrative intimacy.
Eyes Without a Face. Georges Franju's Eyes Without a Face fused poetic imagery with surgical horror, creating a tone unlike any previous genre film. The story of a surgeon attempting to restore his daughter's disfigured face combined tenderness and cruelty within stark black and white compositions. The infamous transplant sequence shocked audiences with clinical realism, pushing boundaries of on-screen violence. Yet the film's quiet moments carried equal power, particularly the daughter's masked wanderings through shadowed corridors. Maurice Jarre's haunting score heightened the dreamlike atmosphere, contrasting innocence with brutality. Franju resisted sensationalism, allowing horror to emerge from moral obsession rather than spectacle. Initially controversial, the film later influenced directors exploring body horror and psychological dread. Eyes Without a Face demonstrated that genre cinema could achieve lyrical beauty while confronting grotesque themes. Its balance of elegance and terror expanded the artistic possibilities of horror, proving it capable of both aesthetic refinement and profound unease.
Psycho. Alfred Hitchcock's Psycho shattered audience expectations by killing its apparent protagonist halfway through the story, a structural gamble that rewired narrative tension forever. The infamous shower sequence, edited with shocking precision, proved that suggestion could be more terrifying than explicit gore. Hitchcock financed the project himself and used his television crew to keep costs low, giving the film a raw immediacy uncommon in studio thrillers. Bernard Herrmann's piercing string score became inseparable from cinematic suspense, demonstrating how music could function as psychological assault. The marketing campaign famously barred late moral certainty, presenting horror not as a distant monster, but as something hiding behind an ordinary smile. The film's exploration of fractured identity influenced decades of thrillers and slashers. By weaponizing editing, sound, and narrative misdirection, Psycho permanently changed how filmmakers manipulate fear and audience trust.
Spartacus transformed the historical epic into a vehicle for political expression and creative defiance. Directed by Stanley Kubrick and starring Kirk Douglas, the film carried enormous scale, yet its most revolutionary impact occurred behind the scenes. By publicly crediting blacklisted screenwriter Dalton Trumbo, the production helped dismantle Hollywood's oppressive blacklist era. The story of a slave rebellion against Rome resonated as an allegory for resistance and personal freedom, giving the spectacle emotional urgency beyond grand sets and battle formations. Kubrick's precise compositions balanced intimate character moments with massive crowd sequences, proving that epic cinema could maintain psychological focus. The "I am Spartacus" scene became a cultural shorthand for solidarity, demonstrating how dialogue could transcend its immediate context. Spartacus elevated large-scale filmmaking into moral commentary, blending star power, political courage, and technical ambition. It showed that blockbuster entertainment could challenge authority while redefining the boundaries of studio-era filmmaking.
The Apartment. Billy Wilder's The Apartment redefined romantic comedy by infusing it with corporate cynicism and emotional melancholy. Instead of glamorous escapism, the film exposed the moral compromises lurking inside office culture.
Jack Lemmon's lonely clerk lends his apartment to executives for extramarital affairs, revealing ambition's quiet humiliations. Shirley MacLaine's performance adds fragile humanity, preventing the story from slipping into satire alone. Wilder's screenplay balanced razor-sharp wit with aching vulnerability, proving that comedy could confront loneliness, suicide, and ethical ambiguity without losing charm. The black and white cinematography emphasized emotional isolation within sprawling office spaces, turning architecture into metaphor. Winning the Academy Award for Best Picture, the film demonstrated that audiences were ready for adult storytelling layered with irony. The Apartment influenced decades of character-driven dramedies by rejecting fairy tale romance in favor of flawed people seeking dignity. Its tonal complexity permanently expanded what mainstream romantic cinema could accomplish.
Ocean's 11 captured the charisma of the Rat Pack while reshaping the heist genre into a playground of cool detachment. Set against the neon glow of Las Vegas, the film assembled Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and fellow entertainers into a criminal ensemble defined more by swagger than desperation. Unlike later high-stakes thrillers, the tone leaned toward playful camaraderie, presenting crime as performance. The desert setting and real casino locations grounded the film in contemporary Americana, blending show business glamour with procedural plotting. Its non-linear execution and multiple target robbery influenced future caper narratives, emphasizing teamwork over lone wolf heroics. While critics were divided, the movie's cultural impact endured, shaping the image of Vegas as cinematic playground. Ocean's 11 demonstrated that star personas could function as narrative engines, paving the way for ensemble-driven crime films that prioritize chemistry and style alongside intricate plotting and spectacle.
Breathless. Jean-Luc Godard's Breathless ignited the French New Wave and rewrote cinematic grammar. Shot on handheld cameras with natural light and improvised dialogue, the film rejected polished studio aesthetics. Its jump cuts shattered continuity editing rules, creating a restless rhythm that mirrored youthful rebellion. Jean-Paul Belmondo's charismatic antihero and Jean Seberg's enigmatic presence embodied existential cool, blending American noir influences with European introspection. Godard treated narrative as flexible, allowing conversations to drift and moments to linger unpredictably. The streets of Paris became both backdrop and character, emphasizing immediacy over artifice. Breathless proved that low-budget filmmaking could feel radical rather than constrained. Its stylistic experimentation inspired generations of directors to challenge conventional storytelling structures. By prioritizing spontaneity and philosophical detachment, Breathless shifted cinema from classical control toward expressive fragmentation, marking a turning point where personal vision overtook studio conformity in defining artistic innovation.
The convergence of these 10 films within a single year illustrates how rapidly cinema can transform when artists challenge convention simultaneously. Across continents, filmmakers dismantled old hierarchies of genre and morality, experimenting with structure, character, and visual language. Horror became psychological, epics grew political, romance turned bittersweet, and art house rebellion entered mainstream consciousness. The innovations introduced in 1960 did not remain isolated. They seeded movements that defined subsequent decades. Editing rhythms evolved, censorship weakened, and audiences grew more comfortable with ambiguity. What unites these works is not shared style, but shared audacity. Each film dared to question how stories should be told and who should tell them. Their influence persists in modern thrillers, independent dramas, ensemble capers, and avant-garde experiments alike. By redefining narrative risk and aesthetic freedom, the cinema of 1960 permanently altered the trajectory of global filmmaking, ensuring its revolutionary spirit continues to echo today.